America is the most litigious society in the world. There's over 15 million civil lawsuits are filed every year because of acts of victimization. Something happened to me, and we're taught to sue that I'm a victim. I like to say that even the insurance industry, by default, is the financing of victimization. It anticipates victimization. That we tend to get fire insurance when the tragedy is going to happen. We anticipate tragedies. And I'm just saying that because these things sometimes lead us in an area of life that we anticipate tragedies and things that are happening to us. I think is that victim mentality has become politicized now, that even our political parties to some degree tend to convince people that you're a victim. The other party made you a victim, and if you vote for my party, we'll free you from that victimization. And that's not true. That is something that happens from within. On the cover of the book, I have a picture of a hole with a ladder that goes down to the bottom. And if you can imagine being at the bottom of that hole and you're praying, God, get me out of this hole, rescue me, and a ladder comes down, at that point, it is no longer necessary for you to pray, but for you to now begin to climb up that ladder to get yourself out of that hole. And every scripture in the Bible represents a rung on the ladder, that God has given us the capacity to literally climb ourselves out of situations because of his word. And that's what victim mentality does for us. I had an interesting revelation one day. I was flying. I spend a lot of time on airplanes now. And when you get to a high enough altitude, Bob, I've discovered that there has never been a cloudy day on earth. Every day since creation has been a sunny day. And if you perceive that you're under a cloudy day, it's only because you're at a lower altitude. You're too low in your thinking. But when you position yourself and you really begin to elevate to the right altitude, you discover that there is no such thing as a cloudy day. I believe that victimization works the same way. It's a set of clouds that as long as we think at a low level, as we see from a limited perspective, we find ourselves under a cloud. But the more we elevate ourselves and we become liberated from the mentality of defeat, we begin to understand that perspective matters, that altitude in our thinking matters. And that's what the book is intended to do for those who are reading the book.
Well, let me ask you about the way that you handle in this book, Zero Victim, issues regarding race. You are an African-American pastor in the Chicagoland area. Tell me how you address such issues in the book.
Sure. It's this idea is something that I believe is so relevant right now. I believe that zero victim mentality is the only way to push the reset button on race relations. I grew up in Alabama, as we mentioned before, in the city of Tuscaloosa, at the tail end of the segregation of the school system. I grew up on the black side of town. The nice school was on the white side of town. And I remember the day that I was bused to the quote unquote white side of town. And in doing so, that was a defining moment in my life of interacting with white kids for the first time. And, Bob, our culture tends to teach us and to inform us that other races are against us and they don't like us. And you buy into all of these kind of ideologies of victimization. But the thing that was interesting to me in third grade is that I discovered that when I did my best, that my grades were as good as any other kids, the grades of any other child in the school. And when I began to understand that they were not holding me back, it boosted my self-esteem. It helped me to understand my identity. It helped me to understand that I was unique and I was anybody's equal, that I was not inferior to anyone. And that improved the quality of my relationships with people from other races because I didn't have any baggage within me. That's the power of victim mentality. And I think across our nation right now, that if we can challenge people to lose victim thinking and to really begin to understand who they are and to be free in their own mindset, it'll increase the quality of relationships across cultures, across ethnicities throughout our society. And so I highly recommend that your leaders would read this book. It'll do a tremendous work just to strengthen their own sense of resolve and identity.